it's important for me and all of the employees, no, to experience it firsthand. So in my case, when we launched Grab Food in 2018, I had to deliver food in BGC walking kasi hindi ako marunong
You walked.
matapsiklo. Oo.
What was the biggest challenge for you and how did you go through that?
The pandemic siguro was very memorable for me. So it wasn't so much that we innovated. What we did was what I would call we problem solved. No? And the key question we were trying to answer was like, what do I do with 50,000 hungry drivers? Diba? And that was the first question. And the second question is, what if this thing lasts 6 months, 9 months, 12 months?
In this episode of the Reimagine Podcast, we are joined by a leader who's shaping a significant part of our daily lives, Ronald Roda, Grab Philippines Country Manager. And since taking on the role late last year, Ronald has been driving innovation and finding new ways to improve Grab's services. Our conversation dives into his approach to leadership, and I walked away with a key insight. To truly understand the needs of your shareholders and customers, you have to be one with them. So, join us as we take a peek into the inner workings of a public transport titan. Welcome to another episode of Reimagine Philippines, where we interview young leaders, innovators, and change makers. And today we are excited to interview a young innovator, the new country head of Grab Philippines, Ronald Roda. Ronald, thank you for being with us today.
Thank you for having me. Thank you for saying I'm young.
You are.
But yeah, I've been with Grab for a bit of time na, about 6 years, no, prior to taking this role. And so parang, I guess in a way, I wouldn't say I'm new to the role. And so I've been through parang a lot, no, in the 6 years that I've been here.
Sabi nila the great leaders, no, yung mga ginagawa nilang innovations, the policies that they introduce to a company are based on their experience. Nag-grab ka ba papunta dito?
Of course, nag-grab ako. And hindi lang yun. Coming up to the building, I checked all of the restaurants in the building.
Okay.
And I found out that they weren't on Grab. So so I have some work to do.
Oh, wow. So you're such a hands-on manager, if you may say.
I think hopefully maybe that's the right term, no? To call me. But ultimately kasi parang I think everyone in Grab is expected to be very hands-on, no? Because you can't parang learn and innovate on things that you have no parang first experience of, no? And for me, for example, when I joined Grab in 2018, it was right smack in the middle of the merger with Uber, no? So I joined. 3 days later, someone said, okay, you're in charge of parang onboarding parang all of these drivers. No?
Wow.
And so I didn't really know anything about Grab at that time, but I had to find a way to onboard parang 35,000 drivers into Grab.
35,000?
Oo.
How were you able to manage that? Ang dami.
I think that was difficult and there was no parang template for this. And so we had to set up all of these different sites and basically run 24/7 for, I think, 30 days. No? And I think it was a point where nobody slept. But I think for us, we thought we had time to onboard them. But what we didn't realize kasi was, every day they weren't driving was lost livelihood for them. So parang there was pressure to parang get as many as fast as possible. Because at that time, Uber had turned off their app. So it wasn't so much for us, but it was for the drivers to try to give them livelihoods. No? And there was no template to this. And so I was new, and the team that went under me also didn't have experience on this. So we had to learn parang on the fly, no? And the only way it worked was to be there, from day one. And my job on day one was I was holding this parang big mic.
Okay.
And I was the one helping drivers queue up, no?
Wow. Okay.
So parang yan siya.
I like the phrase, to be there. Bakit importante for a leader like you to be there?
My perspective on this, Jacque, is that you can't really understand something if you're not on the spot. And so when you are siguro in a company like us who's trying to innovate on certain things, it's important for me and all of the employees, no, to experience it firsthand. So in my case, when we launched Grab Food in 2018, I had to deliver food in BGC walking kasi hindi ako marunong
You walked.
motorsiklo. Oh.
You walk, you delivered
I
food and
delivered.
then you
I
walk?
walked. Hindi
So
siya.
Grab walk.
Oh, Grab walk. Dapat may motorsiklo yun eh.
Okay.
Pero
Okay.
since
So you just want to
hindi ako
try it out.
marunong, I had a backpack.
Did they give you ba naman 5 stars or for
I
delivery?
got some tips. Pero it was,
Okay.
pero okay naman because it was parang in a CBD. But I think the point is, we try to experience our service as much as possible. Like I take GrabCar every day.
Can you share like a story, an encounter with a driver or someone you delivered food to na made you create or craft this policy or innovation for Grab?
So talking to drivers, they're basically saying, can you help us a little bit with parang long-term things? So do you have insurance? What about savings? No. So we've had to change the way we gave parang these benefits to drivers. Another example was parang helping drivers save. So today we usually hold back a certain percentage of income every day, and then we give it back to the driver 30 days, 60 days, 90 days after. And drivers call that their parang bonus. We try our best to provide the best income and the best parang whatever you call it, no, benefits, no, as drivers need it. And so parang if we don't understand them, no, it's going to be different. So I'll give you one other parang item, for example, they've been asking for. So for delivery, apparently mabilis mapudpud yung gulong. Diba? So parang kasi they keep delivering. So one of the things they asked was, could you partner with someone to be able to parang buy wheels cheaper?
Oh, that's a good idea.
Or we partner with Petron and Shell and all of this, and they have 2 pesos off on gas. No?
Oh.
So parang
din.
any help is that we give is necessary. And I think whatever help is needed to get the job done and to make them better human beings, siguro is an example for me of what we will try to give them. I mean, to the best, siguro, of our ability.
I want to go back to being there. Do you also require your employees or the grabbers to be there, like experience this?
So we hold parang driver and merchant forums on a weekly basis. And our grabbers are required to attend these parang weekly forums, no, with passengers, restaurants, merchants. But beyond that, I try, personally, I try to look at like people who are in the office all the time. And basically, I tell them, hey, bawal armchair philosopher sa Grab.
Okay.
You have to be out there, right? If you cannot live the life of a driver or a restaurateur, small restaurateur, diba? Parang di ka pwede. Kailangan mabuhay ka dun sa kinabubuhayan nila, no? Because ultimately, that's the only thing that is needed kasi to innovate. If you try to understand your stakeholders the best, your passengers, your drivers, your merchants, government, and whoever else the best, then you can create things for as better solutions.
Nabanggit mo na yung passengers, they're a critical part of your business model. So how do you ensure naman their safety?
Okay, good question.
Yeah.
65% of our passengers are female. And they mostly ride us at night. So meaning they trust us to take care of them. No? And so how do we do that? We do that in 2 ways. The first is technology. So we've launched parang certain innovations on tech to help parang guide both passengers and drivers. So I'll give you an example.
Okay.
So today we have what we call a selfie for both passengers and drivers.
Ah, really?
Yeah. So, and I'll explain how that works. If you're a driver, several times during the day, a selfie will pop up to check if that's you.
Okay.
Why? Because we ensure that the driver who drives for you is really the driver we trained, scouted, etc. On the other side naman, so when we implemented this, driver-related crimes decreased. The problem was on the other side. Kasi there's no, wala, anyone,
Check on the-
there's no check
yeah.
on the passengers. So recently we've had to introduce parang an entire range of checks on the passengers. So they do selfie too. Diba? They do selfie, they do KYC. We link their debit card, credit card, whatever. So we know who they are. No? And so if you have a ride where you know who the driver is and who the passenger is, it parang decreases the incidents that we see. And that's true. We've seen it decrease. The second little innovation is, in the airplane, they have a black box.
Yeah.
Yeah, right? If something happens, then you retrieve the black
Some
box.
grab my green box.
Yeah,
Hindi na.
I don't know what you call it, but that's a good term, green box. We have optional audio monitoring.
Oh.
So when you take a ride, you can tick a button that says record this entire ride. So the passenger has an option to parang
Also the option, so
it's optional.
okay. Because I was gonna ask about the privacy,
Yes,
but then
correct.
you said it's optional.
So we've had discussions kasi with the Privacy Commission on this, long lasting, no? And the option is always important. So parang it's a balance between what you enforce and what is optional. So on the passenger side, it's optional. 30% of passengers right now basically turn on an option to have that ride recorded. And so what it does is, if there's any dispute inside the car, for example, sabi ng passenger, hey, the driver was rude, driver tried to harass me, whatever, right? Parang we're able to take this entire parang history through the audio recording. There's a few more coming up. So parang we have crash detection now.
Oh,
So
okay.
parang ito yung masyado ng high-tech. So yung app, nadidetect niya yung parang shake. So pag nabangga ka, mag-a-alarm siya somewhere.
Oh, wow.
Kasi the problem naman there is like, what if you don't report, diba?
Yeah.
But that's not there yet. This is parang upcoming. So parang these are parang safety features that we're trying to parang roll out to be sure that the passenger is, I would say, super protected. No?
Now, speaking of challenges, sabi nila, there's no progress without challenge. And the biggest challenge, I think, in the mobility industry is the pandemic. Lahat bagsak. I mean, I couldn't imagine your stress during that time. What was the biggest challenge for you, and how did you go through that?
The pandemic siguro was very memorable for me. No? Because there was a day, I think this was March 18 or 19, where at 11 p.m., the government basically shut down all of transport across Metro Manila.
Yeah,
no?
overnight.
Overnight, right? At 11:30,
Yes.
to shut down transport overnight. No, and we had to announce this before midnight to our drivers. And for me, we had 50,000 GrabCar drivers at that time. The problem was not so much about losing the service of GrabCar, because we knew at some point it would go back up. No, but the question was like, what do you do to 50,000 drivers who may go hungry over parang the next few months, because we didn't really know how they would. No, so it wasn't so much that we innovated. What we did was what I would call we problem solved. No, and the key question we were trying to answer was like, what do I do with 50,000 hungry drivers? Diba? And that was the first question. And the second question is, what if this thing lasts 6 months, 9 months, 12 months?
And then became 2 years.
And 2 years, would we be able to do something? And of course, as Grab, we knew we had resources, but we knew we couldn't siguro sustain it for a long time. No? And so one of the things we initially did was we focused on delivery, because that was, I think, a need at that time. And so we told our 50,000 drivers, can you try to deliver? Diba? Doesn't matter whether you have a bicycle, motorcycle, whatever it is you need, no, to deliver parcels and food, because this is what is needed during the pandemic. So that was one shift that we tried to do. The second shift is, well, ultimately, not everyone wanted to do delivery. So what did you do with them? And so at that time, we were parang trying to play around with loans for drivers. And so what we did was, we said, bahala na. Pautangin na lang lahat yan. Siguro di na makakabayad, pero sige, let's roll the dice and let's
wow,
go.
That's a risk.
Let's go lend them money, right?
Okay.
And so we lent siguro, most people, I don't know, 10, 20,000 pesos. Hopefully enough to last 2 months, no? And that was our forecast at that time. So we played around with driver loans, which by the way today is working fully well for us. No?
Oh, really? How come?
So we actually loan to our drivers. So parang emergency loans when they need something. We have a lending business that parang lends to them. No? And so parang that started parang during that time, and we've been parang iterating on it since then. And then ultimately, we even had to create parang a job agency and literally called up all our friends and said, baka kailangan mo ng crew, di ba? Or I don't know, whatever, right? So yun yung mga, I think these are parang some of, I can't remember everything, but I know it was a chaotic 3 months trying to parang help people just get through it. And then after that came even the bigger challenge, because literally 2 years, diba, of where transport was basically down, and we hope that we could sustain them as far as possible.
Wow, ang tibay nyo.
No.
What kind of skill is that?
Wala, I would just call that resilience.
Resilience.
Oo, parang hindi na
Hanggang
yun.
kaya.
Oo, hanggang kaya. Basta ito yung problem, di ba? Find a way to help 50,000 drivers. And ultimately, the question we were asking is, what is enough? Yun yung question eh. Like, what's enough? Kasi like parang, as long as we said it wasn't enough, we would keep trying. So we even went as far as call supermarket friends and say, may bigas ka ba dyan? Baka gusto mo mag-donate, di ba? And hopefully, one of the interesting things is we had a lot of corporate partnerships, and so we called on them to help.
Now, these are interesting because even as a reporter covering Grab then, I didn't know this.
Yeah, so, Grab doesn't really talk about a lot of the things it does for parang, its constituents, no? But siguro for us, we try to help as best as we can. And maybe moving forward, we'll talk a little bit more about siguro what we do, no?
LTFRB, the regulatory agency, they're taking in more competitions in the market. So how do you stay competitive?
That's an interesting idea,
what's your
no?
plan?
On competition. So I heard that the LTFRB had accredited mga, I think 14
Yes.
new TNCs on car.
Yes.
And by the way, on two-wheel, which is motorcycle taxi, they accredited 4. Okay. On top of the 3 existing players. So there's 7 players on two-wheel, and there's, I don't know how many but there's a lot on four-wheel, no?
Yeah.
I think, in a way, parang the time is ripe for competition eh. Kasi it was obviously difficult parang during the pandemic, no? So as things open up and the market opens up, parang it's natural that competition comes along. I have a slightly different view of competition, no?
Okay.
So in one way, it does make us better. So parang, and it is exciting to compete on transport. But on the other way, we also know that it grows the market. So I'll give you an example. When we acquired Move It in 2022, we were the smallest player. And we thought the initial plan was like, how big is this market? Can we take share from incumbents? What happened was we didn't end up taking share from incumbents. We grew the market 3x. So in a way, parang more competition parang helps grow the market. Because people have a choice. Eh, diba? And ultimately, parang, to me, that's the ultimate determinant. Parang if all of these other players decide to compete on service, fares, whatever, then obviously we have to be able to react to that.
And step up.
Yeah, and step up. Yeah, which is difficult, but hopefully very doable, no?
Okay. You have expanded Grab. Well, taga-probinsya ako. So, walang Grab sa amin dati. And now there's Grab. Like, how were you able to enter this market, expanding beyond the metropolitan area, and convince them, hey, Grab is okay for you?
So, our journey for what we call OTC, outside the capital,
Yes.
that's our term, no?
OTC.
Started, I think, during the pandemic when, we had to expand.
Oh, you're taking in a lot of challenges.
Yeah,
during
so
the
we had to
pandemic.
expand during the pandemic. In the middle of the pandemic, we had to expand. And so we would go to the cities to say, can we do Grab food?
Okay.
And the mayors and the local government would say, who are you? Diba?
Yeah, what is
Like,
that?
what is that? Diba? So parang it was very slow parang expansion. Today, it's a totally different matter. What we find is if there's a city, for example, we're now in most cities in Mindanao. And what we're finding is that if there's a city is not on Grab, parang the local government looks at that differently and they think that, okay, we're not as progressive as the other cities.
Oh.
It became parang a measure of progress that they would have parang real-time delivery, no? And probably not even just Grab, everything from e-commerce to food delivery to mobile payments. So parang all of these parang tech today, 4 years later, parang are super welcome in parang the different cities, no?
Of course, when you're expanding, you're providing livelihood, how do you take care naman of who you call driver partners? You call them driver partners, right? How do you take care of them?
So what we're trying to do, first of all, from an earning standpoint, is to provide parang what I call family wages. And family wages is, for example, in Manila, I think 1,100, and that is the wages that are necessary for a family of 4 to survive.
A day.
Yeah. So not minimum wage, but family wage. So parang family wages are benchmark, and we try our best to provide that as a minimum to drivers. I mean, assuming they're full time, of course. But more than that, recently, the drivers have obviously been in dialogue with us, and they've been wanting more, no? And so parang from purely just earnings, we've had to innovate to provide non-monetary things that drivers need. So for example, they have basic insurance per ride, but they prefer to have life insurance. And so parang for us, once you get to a certain level, drive X hours, do certain rides, then we give you parang life insurance. So for example, for SSS, we've had to partner with the SSS for drivers to parang do their own remittance. But to me, I want to go further eh.
Okay.
Kasi parang it's like, okay, we've given you a job, you're earning family wages. We've given you some of the parang hopefully social protection you need. But then what, diba? How do I parang improve the quality of your life? Sorry, medyo malalim na siya.
Yeah.
No?
I love
And like, okay, so how do we do that? No? So we're starting out now with parang education.
Okay.
So we've given, I think, scholarships to parang 300, 400 driver families.
Families.
So.
Okay.
And we have an online platform that provides training. No? But that's not a very parang popular medium for drivers. So we're trying to find a way to provide education that's parang hybrid online, offline. And so we're working with a few parang universities on this now. Eh.
Okay. Ronald, that sounds so idealistic. Parang ang hirap niyang buuin. How many driver partners are we talking about and how does it benefit you?
We have parang siguro a little less than 200,000 drivers. And obviously we're growing, so the number of drivers is increasing. Does it cost money?
Yeah.
In a way it does. But the way kasi we do it is we try our best to balance earnings with whatever passengers pay. You then have people who want to order and are saying, ang mahal naman nung parang delivery fee nyo. Diba? And the way I look at that is, that delivery fee, majority of that goes to the driver. So it's important that it is siguro also at a right level. Like I cannot pay the driver 20. I know people want a 25 peso delivery fee, but we can't do that because nga parang the driver won't make any money. So we need to be able to strike the balance between what the passengers pay and what the drivers earn. No? And the only way to do that is parang to do a balancing act. No? Either which way you're gonna get criticized. Eh. They will either say you are charging too much, or
That's
the other
the passenger side.
Yeah, it's the passenger side. The driver side will say, I'm not earning enough from you.
So let me clarify. The majority of the delivery fee goes to the
Actually, on
the
Grab
delivery
Food,
rider.
we don't take anything from the driver.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh,
we
I
take,
didn't know
we
that.
we take from the merchant.
Ah, okay.
Yeah. So the delivery fee you pay more or less goes to the driver.
And how about the Grab cars?
So on GrabCar, we take an average of siguro 19-20% from the driver directly. So magkaiba yung model niya.
Any upcoming innovations that you will be introducing as, taking the helm of Grab Philippines?
Some of the ones that aren't known is we're innovating a lot on groceries. So we have a parang GrabMart business on the app where you buy groceries. But for the longest time, parang it's not as parang big as we wanted it to be. So we're doing parang certain innovations to it. So I'll give you an example. Um, the typical problem with e-commerce is that there's no stock.
Yes.
So you're looking at it and it says one remaining, and then you click it and then somebody,
Wala na.
right?
Totoo yan.
Someone else got it and then
Yes.
it's gone. So parang 30-40% of parang the dissatisfaction coming from shopping comes from this. And so what we've done is we've introduced parang option buttons. So where if you shop something,
Oh, okay.
it has options. Number 1, call me if there's no more stock. B, automatically replace with another brand. C, just remove it. Right? So parang it's basically giving the passenger the one who
The
orders
consumer.
the consumer the choice of parang ordering. Kasi the problem with us is we are e-commerce but we're real-time e-commerce. Sa amin in seconds kasi
Yeah, it's
ubos
there.
yun. Like pag may nag-iPhone sale, kunwari sa Grab, and there's 50 iPhones on sale, I can tell you in like 2 minutes, ubos yan. So parang it's important to parang work on that eh. So that's parang one of our parang innovations, we call it. And so, but they're not so much on food and car anymore, but they're on parang the other parang businesses we have.
Ang daming innovations. Are there leaders that you look up to and that you try to emulate?
That's a difficult question. I think there's really a lot, no?
A lot.
I like kasi to go back to parang theory eh.
Okay.
And so parang at some point I attended classes at Harvard. And there was this professor named Clay Christensen that talked a lot about innovation. Parang he was one of the parang founders of parang innovation theory of the 20th century. So parang a lot of that theory parang has helped me parang move forward eh. And it's just little ways of looking at things from a different lens, I guess. Because innovators ultimately they don't see the problem as we do. They look at it parang I don't know, totally differently. So I'll give you an example. Let's just say your elevator outside is slow, right? So parang for us, we would say, can you please speed up the elevator? Right? That's kind of how we look at it. The innovator would say, I'll put mirrors around the elevator so you can look at yourself while it's slow. Right? So I mean, yun yung example. So I mean, that's just an example of parang how you...
So you look at it at a different
A
perspective,
different
and you provide a
perspective.
solution
Correct.
given
Yes.
in a different
Oo.
perspective.
Yes.
Wow.
And then you change the perspective again, and then you provide another solution. Yeah. But back to your question, I do a lot of parang theory to understand parang how it works. I mean, most people naman in Grab do. So you need the foundation eh. Diba? So, yun.
Okay, my last question would be, how do you imagine traveling in the Philippines in the near future?
So we've been thinking about that a lot. No? And the reason why we've been thinking about that a lot is now we're in 200 cities and municipalities. We can make parang certain things happen. In the olden days, you'd go to a city and like, well, good luck. There's no Grab, right? So sayang naman yung app ko in Manila. I can't bring it to City X. No? But today, that is available. So the question for us is, how do I ensure continuity between your usage of the app here and where you go? No? And that starts with siguro airports. So, for example, innovating the airport is one parang big part because that's the one that ensures continuity. And so we've been playing around with scheduled rides. So parang to the airport. My flight leaves at 5:30. I need to be sure I will make it to the airport at 5, no matter what happens. So this one we've been a bit successful. But then when you land, like,
Wala.
can you get a ride, right? So parang that's kind of the next frontier. How do I make the transition from this airport or seaport to the next airport parang as seamless as possible?
Oh, so you're thinking interconnectivity, in terms of
Interconnectivity.
traveling.
And right now, while parang the tech is not fully there, we've basically just set up booths in all the major airports so that at least, when you go to a certain city, you know that Grab is there. And what we're finding is awareness is the first thing. Kasi people realize, oh, dito pala kayo. So yun pa lang, yun yung insight eh. So, parang saka mo na i-figure out yung iba. Parang just make sure that
Yeah.
that people know you're there, no. So we're going hard on airports to connect, no. And then once we do that, then the tourism industry siguro is the next to innovate, no.
Oh, wow.
Like, what can I do with that? Tours, transport, hotels. Can we do something? I don't know specifically the answers. We'll have to look at it. But parang that's something we've been.
So the sky's the limit.
The customer journey and convenience is the limit.
Oh, I like
So parang how do I? Because I travel a lot. I mean, being in Grab and launching all of these cities, parang I have to be in multiple different cities, right? So I literally feel the pinch when I have a hard time traveling, booking, and honestly, like I think this market is ripe kasi for disruption. Eh.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. So but we're not there. We'll get there parang siguro in the next 1 to 2 years.
You're teaching in the University of the Philippines, innovations. With all these experiences, the challenges during the pandemic, ang dami pa, itong recovering, itong adjusting to the new market, what kind of advice would you impart to your students and to the future leaders listening to us as well?
That's interesting, no?
Mahirap ba? Miss
Mahirap,
Universe
that's a good,
question.
Miss Universe question. Mahirap siya. For me, siguro I try as best to impart mindset. So if you teach kasi a class innovation, they will forget the process. Eh. But if they understand how you think, maybe they can do and can learn a bit more. No. So, for example, for innovators, you can't be black and white. You have to be very used to ambiguity. People need to be siguro, comfortable with the gray. In order for you to innovate. What I'm trying to do to my class, and not just my class, but to my staff at Grab, diba, is basically, teach them how to manage that ambiguity. To be put into situations where, they don't know what to do, but they have to parang think on their feet, no? And the only way to do that, as I had mentioned earlier, is you have to be on ground, diba? Because from there, you can find truths that you can't find parang anywhere else.
Wow. And that wraps up
Okay.
our episode about innovations in Grab Philippines. Thank you, Ronald.
Okay. Thank you.